Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aviv Tzur. I'm the president of the GMAA. We're very excited to host this webinar titled Business, Private Jets, and FBOs. How has this industry changed with the pandemic? This is the latest edition in a series of webinars we are conducting, highlighting segments such as cargo, low-cost carriers, regionals, and next month, by the way, on the agenda is the MRO industry, so stay tuned. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Signature Flight Support and Shelt Air for stepping up and helping us with this webinar. I would like now to invite Milo Zonka, Vice President of Real Estate for Shelt Air, to start us off. Milo?
Thanks, Aviv, and good afternoon, everybody. And like you, I'm really looking forward to this panel and hearing this discussion today about the impacts of COVID and how the industry is moving forward. Shelt Air is an almost 60-year-old stalwart in business aviation here in South Florida. We were founded in Fort Lauderdale and have grown to more than 24 locations and 4 million square foot of real estate and almost 1,200 tenants and partners that we have, including a couple on the phone here today. And so we're really grateful for those relationships. And, you know, aviation's a small world. We all talk about that all the time. And, you know, sometimes it gets smaller when two pilots sit in a hangar and start hangar flying together with their hands. And sometimes it gets smaller when 100 of us get together on a Zoom call and start sharing our experiences and learning from each other's experiences. So really looking forward to that. And on behalf of Shelt Air, and you know, not every year has been a good year, but through the sheer force of will and of our owner, Jerry Holland, some years the company moves forward because he says it has to. And in other years it moves forward because it's a great industry and everybody wants to be a part of it. So on behalf of all of our owners and all of our employees, you know, thank you for your support of Shelt Air, and we look forward to hearing more today. So thanks, Aviv.
Fantastic. Thank you, Milo. So I'm going to give you a little background. Those of you who are unfamiliar with the GMAA, the Greater Miami Aviation Association is a nonprofit organization. It was established in 1927 by industry giants such as Glenn Curtis, Juan Trippe, and Eddie Rickenbacker to promote the interest of the aviation industry in South Florida. Their first goal was to establish an international airport in Miami, which they achieved a year later. Today, the GMA is still the main advocacy group for its more than 300 member companies, which include airlines, MROs, FBOs, manufacturers, distributors, and others. Our other mission is to assist young aviators wishing to pursue careers in our industry. Over the past 15 years, we have expanded our activities, and we have granted over $750,000 in scholarships to students wishing to pursue a lifelong dream to become pilots, technicians, and flight controllers, but lacking the financial means. Each year, we are assisting at least 20 such university and technical college students with generous scholarships. We're very proud that many of our scholarship recipients are women, and we are eager to continue and promote this trend. With us today are many students who are enrolled in such programs, and they want to hear from some of the veterans who have been there and done that. Last time we started using a new feature, which is the donate button, which will enable you to make a tax-deductible donation, and any amount is welcome, and it will flow directly into our scholarship fund. I also want to recognize Eddie Wayman and Wayman Aviation, and Patrice Robinet, Managing Director of Halcyon Aviation Capital, without whom this panel would not have happened. Thank you, Eddie and Patrice, for your continued support of the GMAA mission. Also, Connie Devine, our secretary, and to R3 Aviation Marketing and their president, Rebecca Longo, for promoting this event. You may get a follow-up survey request from her after this is done. So now let's turn our attention to today's panel. We will try to understand how has this industry segment specifically been affected by this pandemic, and are we seeing signs of recovery soon, and where are we heading? We have an amazing panel today. Please click on their bios if you have not done so already to learn about their illustrious careers, which they may share a personal story about a bit later. So with us today is Isaac Lee Sr. He's Director of Miami FBO for Signature. Thank you very much, Isaac and Signature, for your generous sponsorship today. We have Don Campion, President of Banyan Air Services, Fabio Alexander, CEO of Executive Air Services, Sean Anthony, Maintenance Supervisor for Solarius, Jay Hepner, Chief Pilot for ExoJet, and Damien Sula, COO for Ambassador. Audience, while you are muted, you may still raise hands and ask questions through the Q&A. Hopefully, we will have enough time left at the end to address some of the questions. And with that said, I'm going to turn into our first question to the panel. How has the pandemic affected the FBO executive aviation industry segment, and specifically your company? And let's please start with Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Aviv. Well, in the beginning, it was really bad, 80% off, but as of now, we hover around the 20-ish percentage. It really varies by region of the country. Those that were open and remained open got a lot of business. Those that were shut down, traffic suffered. I would also add the extra cleaning in the facilities, as well as the extra PPE for our employees and dealing with the varying degrees of compliance with our customers on top of bases having outbreaks and quarantine. Managers have had to become very creative in covering their location. Avid, I think you're on mute.
I apologize. You see, I've done what I said will happen. Don, same question, please.
Yeah, thank you. Exciting panel here. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to the governor of Florida for keeping the state relatively open, because in March and April, boy, when the airlines really died off, well, the FBO users kind of followed that trend. And as Isaac had said, you know, we were down 80%, down to just pumping very little gas, no international traffic. Then it was around May that people began to understand more about this pandemic and started to look at the options of flying privately. And since that time, it's certainly been coming back. We saw right after Thanksgiving, right around November, December, January, have all come back to equal to last year. And that's partly because, of course, season being down here in Florida, but again, because of no quarantine ruling and so forth, which has really fed that. And I believe that a lot of people were forced to look at private aviation because we are finding many customers are first time to Banyan and first time aircraft owners.
Great. And Fabio, same question, please.
So, and dovetailing what Isaac and Don were saying, we were doing great, going right into the new year, which is our season. It's still our season right now, and into Super Bowl. And now going towards the end of February and into March is when we started seeing actually our flights even increasing more because people wanted to either escape where either the infections were up or just wanted to make sure that they were not stuck where they were going to be at, where they were shutting down. So we saw a lot of people. Actually, March was our record month. And then we went from having a record month in hours between our airplanes to almost nothing happening in April. And I think one of the things that I would credit not knowing the unknown, and you guys have heard me say this and I'll say it again, I kept telling my team, I'm going to call it the COVID IFR. This is the IFR we have not flown through. So we can only fly through what we have in front of us. Yeah, Fabio, but there's nothing going on. So I said, well, listen, we have an airplane to add on our certificate. Let's see what we can do. While we weren't flying, we were able to add an airplane to our certificate within 3 weeks in April, which I did not expect, did not see it coming, especially working with the FAA, which some of my fellow panelists can tell you, it's not always easy to even see that happening. I kind of saw it differently. they saw it that that we needed each other. And it was kind of different to see that coming from the government, only because they can either be gung-ho about adding airplanes or they might not be. But I think everybody was quite in fear of not knowing the unknown. But as long as you have something in front of you, there's always something to do. And I credit my team to being where we're at. And obviously other partners in the industry, like the ones on the panel, because I think we've proven in the industry, and this is the third time that this industry has proven to be resilient. One after 9/11, when the airlines were pretty much grounded, and we were the first ones to pretty much be flying up before they were, and then in 2008 with the Great Recession, yes, the industry took a hit, but they were basically the heavy hitters that were exposed by the subprime market and the shorts and everything that was happening during that time, where their planes were being repossessed out of my own FBO, believe it or not. But yet people were basically, dumbing down to a lower aircraft, but planes still kept flying. And now here we have the pandemic proving once again that our industry, if the kids are listening as to why to choose the industry, shows once again that not only because we have a geographical advantage over the airlines, and we always will, and no offense to them, it's a 10-to-1 advantage. People see, wow, this is a good way to fly out with not having the rigors of going through a lot of the security protocols that you have to go through when you deal with volumes of people. So I credit our industry and our panel panelists, and everybody could agree that this is the reason this industry is still where it is today.
All right, Fabio, you already jumped to my second question, but I'll go
Sorry.
with and Jay, could you also address how has the pandemic affected the market and specifically your company?
Yeah, so I'd have to echo everything that Isaac and Don and Fabio have said. It affected us two different ways. One was internally. We had a lot of people working from home and having to learn from home, which kind of caused some coordination issues because rather than just be able to reach across a room or talk to someone across the table, we're trying to deal with Zoom and all the other types of video conferencing there is to try to get work done, and telephone calls and soft phones. So there was that part of it. And then also internally, we had no layoffs. We did no pay cuts. We kept everybody employed. We kept everybody going, even in the worst of times. And I think that was a great motivator that the company was looking out for the employees. And so the employees was looking out for the company. Externally, as far as business, in February, we actually saw a slight uptick in February when the pandemic was first hitting. And these were groups of people with their entire families and just about all their belongings and pets that were traveling to wherever they were going to go quarantine in, their summer homes or whatever. So we had a lot of traffic in February, sometimes 2 flights just to accommodate one family and all their belongings to get them to where they wanted to go in February. And then, of course, in March through June, it was, a precipitous fall and very little traffic at all. It's coming back now a little bit, as Fabio mentioned. It's coming back. We're not seeing quite the business travelers we were at the end of the summer. We started to see people going back home. So we had the reverse exodus, if you will, of people leaving their bunker locations and going back to their homes or to their office or whatever. So we've been, as most of you know, that as an airline, we've been having to cope with the plethora of CDC and FAA rules and to manage those on it almost for a while there. It seemed like a daily basis. The mask mandate just recently, the UK mandates coming back from there, and of course now we have to have a negative PCR test before coming back into the US. So managing all that, because now we have to collect the forms and save them for 2 years. Just all the rules that we've been having to implement and pass on to our clients, some of which don't understand why we're doing it. Of course, international travel was bad during the summer because there was no intra-Europe flying per se. Countries weren't allowing other countries to fly into their country, and we're starting to see a little bit of relaxation there now. But the U.S. seems to be not the epicenter, but it seems to be a hot spot right now for the other countries don't want people coming from the U.S. essentially. So we've been managing through it day by day, and like I said, we're starting to see a rebound, and we'll talk about that. I think that's on my next question. So
right. So I think it's safe to say, from what we hear so far, is that there were some turbulences during 2020, no doubt about it. But it looks like overall we're starting to emerge out of it. Some businesses actually flourished because of the need to use more private aviations. Others suffered. And maybe if we could ask Damien and Sean to address specifically how has it affected their companies. Damien?
Yes, so on our end, we cannot tell it affected the company because we have not started our operation yet. However, we have been monitoring what's happening here in Florida, and I think it could be quite interesting for the audience if I share some material really quickly. If you see on the bottom of this document, this red curve is showing the traffic we had in 2019 at Opa-locka Airport in Miami. Now, this curve is showing what happened in 2020. And we see, as I think it was Isaac saying, that they have experienced approximately a drop of 75–80% in April. But what we notice, and that's true for all the airports of Greater Miami, I can, for example, take the example of Fort Lauderdale Executive. Since June of this year, the business aviation and the business jet traffic has recovered its level of 2019, which can let us conclude that the South Florida and above all Miami airports are doing well with the pandemic, contrary to other locations, in the US, we are suffering much more in terms of business aviation. Just taking the example of probably the worst area we have in the US right now, which is New York with Teterboro, and Teterboro is still barely at half of the volume they have known in 2019. So that is to say, Florida is doing really great, and I just want to say that we have the proof that despite that the pandemic for sure slow down things, slow down development, but certainly not prevents developments to happen, because we are on the edge to open our new FBO business.
It's fantastic that you share this information with us. It's very eye-opening when you see the graphic display. And so, Sean, a question to you, because I know you're more on the maintenance side. I mean, I would assume that when airplanes are not flying, you got more time to do maintenance.
Yeah, correct. And if, as we talk to the MROs or even try to get aircraft into events, you're finding that just yesterday I was in a conversation with Falcon, and they're busy. A couple of days ago with Gulfstream, they're busy. Everybody, all the MROs are busy. December, I had to head to St. Louis to get an aircraft out of pre-buy. That MRO was busy. As my aircraft was leaving, another one was coming in. From the maintenance point of view, we have not, I guess the best way to say it, we haven't skipped a beat, right? But from the company's point of view, from the management company's point of view, Solaris, we saw double-digit aircraft management growth this year. We had significant growth in aircraft management during the worst times of the pandemic. In addition to that, December, you could hardly get a slot for pre-purchase inspection at an MRO. So we think that what we see for 2021, we see that growth continuing and possibly getting back to 2019 and exceeding 2019 levels.
Wonderful. Okay, so going back to the question that Fabio already answered for you guys is, what makes this industry segment so unique? Why should a graduate of an aviation program in South Florida, like the likes of some of the students who are listening to it, why should they join the industry? Jay, if we can start with you, please.
Sure. So a couple of things, and Fabio did hit on a little bit there, was the COVID brought a time where passengers were now experiencing private travel probably for the very first time, and they enjoyed the experience. We gave them the same level of service as we normally would for any flight. But now they're on an airplane with just themselves or just with their families. And so that actually created a little bit of a boom for us. We're currently back at 95% of what we were pre-COVID, whereas the airlines are still right around 38%. So the business is coming back in that respect, that people are still traveling. I was a prior military pilot, and then I was a Part 121 pilot, and of course now a Part 135 pilot and chief pilot. And I can tell you that the Part 135 flying that we do right now, especially for a young student, it's great flying. It's fun. It's dynamic. It's very much like flying in the military flying, where you're doing things on your own. We have someone doing the flight planning for us, but you're actually determining the fuel loads and talking to the passengers and giving the briefings and doing everything that goes along with that. So it's more hands-on than it was at Part 121, where you get on the airplane, you turn left and you close the door and you take off. So it's very exciting for anyone that want to do that. We have, as part of the business, since we did flourish a little bit during COVID, we didn't make the money we did because the yield was down, but we did have flying, except during the summer. We were able to acquire Red Wing Aviation up in Minnesota to provide more opportunities for us to capture the light jet market, because we're already in the mid and long range. We do have at Exojet Aviation, we are partners with Southwest, the Destination 225 program, and also the ATP Flight School, which is the largest flight school in the nation. So this is a great place to be. And like I said, we're doing well, and we welcome you aboard. We currently have 286 pilots. Like I said, we didn't lay anybody off. We have 57 aircraft, and we fly all over the world, Africa and the Middle East and Europe and Asia. And along with that, we have 47 cabin hostesses that provide service for the customers on our Challenger 350s and our Global 5000s.
Great. Damien, what's your pitch to a student that's looking at this industry and is wondering, should I go in? What made you come in? How would you address it with that student?
Yeah, definitely business aviation is something amazing to join. There is one figure, and you understand that I love talking about figures, but there is one figure relevant to describe business aviation. Today, you have approximately 22,000 business jets flying all around the world. And if we need to compare this number to the number of airliners flying, it's approximately 27,000 passengers airliners. So we have almost as many business jets than airliners today. So definitely something is unique about that. And this fleet keeps growing. Sean mentioned that manufacturers are busy today. That's true. We also need to highlight that business aviation is using amazing aircraft, but also it's unique because of the passengers flying these aircraft. And that's important too on another standpoint. And more precisely, if I need to convince young students to join business aviation, and more specifically to join Embraer, this is a good opportunity to join a company that has some plan to disrupt the standard FBO industry. If you love aviation, if you're passionate about technology, about innovation, you'll probably find something really appealing joining us and working to devise what could be the business aviation of today and of course of tomorrow.
What were those pictures you just showed us? Or is this a rendering of a hangar?
This is the artwork of the very first infrastructure we plan to we will build in a month at Opa-locka Airport, so in a Miami Executive Airport in Miami, which is very disruptive design, highly innovative. This is artwork. Dimensions are much bigger actually, and shape are quite different today. But this is something that will be amazing, and that reflect pretty much how innovative and in move can be this business aviation business, and more specifically how innovative the FBO can be too.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Very, very nice rendering. Fabio is looking at it and say, wow, 20 something years ago when I was struggling to stay in Opa-locka with all the warlords there. And now look at what's going on in Opa-locka. It's just incredible. And I have to say that, when I joined the Opa-locka Airport redevelopment task force, 15 years ago, we envisioned we could do something amazing with Opa-locka, but I never, ever thought that we will have the flourishing that we see today. Sean, let me ask you the question, but from a different point of view. I mean, we have students here at George T. Baker Technical College. They're studying to be mechanics. When we talk about careers in private aviation or executive aviation, that we need pilots, we need crews, but we need mechanics. And it's very specific mechanical skills. Can you share with us some of that?
Well, I came from the airlines after 9/11 and came into corporate aviation through NetJets as a maintenance controller. Once I got into business aviation, quickly realized that there was no way I was going back to the airline. It's a very dynamic business, a very dynamic industry. You don't see the same thing twice. And in addition to that, there are so many opportunities at so many different levels. For example, I'm a maintenance guy, A&P by trade. But I've been vice president, I've been director of maintenance, I've been a 119 guy and I still enjoy taking out my tools and working on airplanes. The guys coming through school right now, I think they're in the perfect position to work through whether it be the manufacturer's MROs or a shop which is doing prop business. Prop maintenance, to gain the experience in our industry so that they can then grow and move on into the light jets, mid jets, and get into heavy jets for maintenance.
Okay, fantastic. Isaac, I want to ask you that same question about what's exciting, and maybe you can illustrate it to the audience by telling us what it's like when you have a Super Bowl, what it's like when you have an Art Basel. What kind of activity do you see at Signature when an event like this happening?
Well, Aviv, I'll tell you, I started my career in the Navy as an aviator, and my passion for aviation started when I was a young boy growing up with my uncle working for GE building aircraft engines. So it's been a long time. So, there's so much opportunity. We as an industry probably need to do a better job of telling the story of general aviation, from FBOs to mechanics to pilots, administration, flight attendants. Is really a hidden gem. And the airlines continue to consolidate and lose jobs. There's plenty of opportunity in the general aviation sector. Just for example, when Super Bowl, Art Basel, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces that come together in order to be able to strive for these events. We bring in additional support staff from other locations within the organization. We bring in additional equipment, hotel arrangements for the support staff. There's just so many different moving parts, and we just try to bring all those together in order to try to make these events as pleasant and as possible.
Fantastic. And Don, same question, please.
Well, first of all, let me say our industry is so unique because you can do things with corporate aircraft that you really can't do any other way, such as the privacy that comes with it, security, the personal touch, the customized service of office in the sky, flying to 3 airports and home for supper. You can't do that any other way, making us very unique. As it relates to the Super Bowl, I pulled up some figures. Last time it was in Miami, 412 fuelings, 800 total operations, 450 tows. We fueled NetJets aircraft 165 times, 3,000 pounds of ice, and 200 gallons of coffee, and 980 newspapers. So needless to say, it's an awesome weekend for South Florida.
It really was.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's that. When we talk about economic impact, I think that's a huge economic impact on South Florida and on your industry specifically.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Don, let's stay with you, and if you could talk about the main challenges that are facing the industry in upcoming years.
Well, it's the consolidation in the FBO business, which then leads to networking between FBOs for those large operators that can give advantages to charter outfits and corporate aviation when they go from airport to airport versus the independent operator. Then you've got fire codes for hangars, increasing codes for trucks, looking closer at biofuels, which is increased cost. Unfortunately, litigation is just going through the roof. So often, if there's a mishap, it's almost the lawyers get involved before the insurance company gets involved, which is so different from years gone by, where we worked it out more between operators and the insurance company, keeping the legal aspect out of it. Also, another challenge is aircraft are getting larger. So our ramps are getting smaller. Our hangars, which require larger hangars, again, have different codes as it relates for fire and building codes. When you get into the larger hangars, then it costs more. Also, in the technical side, aircraft are becoming electronically advanced. So your technicians really need to go back to school and to keep up and to be able to really, with new installs and avionics and so forth, be able to explain the features of some of the new equipment that's coming out, along with composite aircraft, carbon fiber. All of these things are challenging, but exciting. They all, with every challenge, there's an opportunity. And when you start to master some of these areas, you're able to keep ahead of the competition.
Right. And Fabio, you've been in this industry for a while. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so when you think about the challenges that are facing the industry, what comes into your mind?
Well, I think one thing I got to point out when you say about challenges, and you mentioned the founders of GMAA, Juan Tripp, Glenn Curtis, and of course, Eddie Rickenbacker. Besides our own religious beliefs, the one religion I have in aviation is what Eddie Rickenbacker said, infamously, being that ace World War I pilot. He says, aviation is proof that given the will, we have the capacity to achieve the impossible. And I can't tell you that I scratch that record more often than not. So I basically point the finger. The challenge is us. We are our own challenge. We create our own obstacle, and as well as we create our own catalyst. A lot of what Don said is true. And there's a lot of unknowns. This pandemic has shown us that besides all these new building codes and all these protocols, lack of ramp space, new technology for new airplanes, the pandemic showed us, wow, we got to think about COVID protocols that we didn't have to think about. So really, it's on us to adapt with each challenge. And I keep going back, and of course, I'm biased to the industry, and having an FBO and being one of the youngest, minorities, you could say, in the industry to own an FBO here at Opa-locka. But I really look up to those who have done really well in the industry, besides Don, you, Aviv, who've been a part of my success and helping me build a hangar that I'm currently in as a tenant, that thank you to Isaac, his signature allows me to stay in. So it's really us. It's really us. We're our own biggest challenge, if we allow it to be.
Wow, that's a great answer. Thank you, Fabio. Well, I mean, Isaac, since Fabio has mentioned your name, you get to answer that next.
As I do echo Don and Fabio's comments, one of the things I see is the entry-level labor. Starting wages keep going up, and we are competing against the likes of Amazon, et cetera, and the wages are being pressured along with many of our positions, manual labor jobs, which is hard to find these days. And I would add the impact of sustainable aviation fuel and the sourcing of it. Everyone wants it. There's a limited supply and it's so expensive. We need to figure that one out as well.
Okay, understood. Jay, same question, please.
Sure. The biggest challenge I see right now, especially from our company and for all Part 135 carriers, is restoring confidence in air travel again. Like I said, the airlines are way down. We're trying to catch up a little bit, back up, like I said, about 95%. But I was part of the airlines after 9/11, and that was a one-day event, very tragic event, but it was over one day, and it took 18 months for the airlines to recover after that. And it was very affixed by just starting the TSA and improved and increased security measures and stuff like that. They gave the company or the passengers confidence to begin flying again. Here we are a year into the pandemic, and we're not really seeing that confidence come back. And you can certainly see that in the airline world. What I've been working on is something for the future of how to continue to keep our passengers safe and confident to fly, and a sanitized travel is what we call it, where we can keep the protocols that we have going and adapting as necessary with cabin treatments, with protections from the clients to touch surfaces and the crews, the way they interact and handle the clients' bags and goods. So that's what we're working on is restoring confidence in the consumer to begin flying again more than they have been so far. And again, I'm just calling it sanitized travel. So that's what we're working on over here.
Super. And Damien?
Yeah, I would like to use a word I think Don used, which is adapt. Actually, I think the key will be the ability to adapt and to evolve, and specifically the way business aviation will be able to deal with the change of the environment. So that can mean how, for example, FBO, taking our own example of FBO, how will we be able to deal with the new environmental regulation, talking about fire protection, for example. We are in the middle of construction, and that's complicated, but also our FBO will be able to adapt regarding the new threat in terms of security, maybe physical security, but also a very interesting word used by Don once again, I think, which is privacy. Today we are living in a world where almost everybody have a smartphone. So privacy is one of the threats, and maybe one of the things on which business aviation needs to adapt today. But we know that it's also inherent to business aviation to be able to adapt and to evolve. So that should be an interesting challenge.
Terrific. And Sean, the same question, please.
In my mind, it's higher end. I believe that we're going to be competing with quite a few industries for the best. And like Don said, maintenance, the aircraft are changing. They're more technical. They're more electronic. We need the best going forward in not only in maintenance, but as pilots. And I think we're going to be losing we're going to be losing that battle to industry, because as Isaac says, to start off with, there's a lot of hard labor in it. And most pilots start off on the ramp, dragging a hose, fueling aircraft, doing servicing labs and stuff like that. And I'm not sure how yet, but we've got to find a way to attract the next generation, or we'll all be here struggling, trying to fill the open positions that we have. unable to grow our business. And that's been that's my focus now, is trying to find the next generation of aviators, and in addition to that, trying to reduce the cost, the cost barrier to enter our field. So I think hiring is going to be our next major challenge.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you. I mean, that's a great segue, by the way, to my next question. And this question is more directed to enlighten our young listeners, which are students or young aviators. And when we want to take an advice from people like, I mean, no one has started at the top. You don't start as an owner of a company or a CEO of a company, well, unless you inherit a company from your parents. But people like Fabio, for instance, who started pumping fuel in Marathon. I mean, you need to sweat, and blood, sweat, and tears until you get to where you are. And there's a lot of obstacles on the way. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to ask each of you, based on your own history, can you assist some of the students who are trying to make inroads in aviation with a personal story and advice you got from a mentor? And I actually see that Milo is still with us. Milo, I don't think you're ready for me to ask you again a question, but I'm sure you can tell us some story. So maybe we start with you, please.
Fire away one more time. I'm sorry. I was just actually sending messages to everybody about how much I'm enjoying this panel, but for 10 seconds, I wasn't paying attention.
No worries. And sorry for the, incoming. The question was, we've all been through ups and downs over our careers. We started from very, low position and build our way up. If you can share a story or an advice you got from a mentor that helped you make inroads in this industry.
Honestly, when I was very young in another industry, the best advice I ever received was to listen to the people with the gray hair, because they've been through a couple cycles. They've got some wisdom and some experience and maybe a few scars that if you listen and you learn, you can move forward without having to relive all of the dramas that they've had to go through. So that has carried me well. I surround myself with experienced people, and now I think I see a lot of gray hair on my chin at least, but perhaps I qualify and have gained a little wisdom myself and can pass it along from time to time. So if you ask me for wisdom, I always have some. I'm not sure if it's helpful.
All right, thank you. Jay, same question.
That's great. So for me, it started in 7th grade. My best friend and I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy, so we talked to our guidance counselor in junior high, and that guidance counselor gave us what classes we need to take in high school in order to be considered for the academy. And I was very fortunate enough, in fact, we both were fortunate enough to be accepted in the Air Force Academy, and that started off our careers. 4 years at the Air Force Academy, then 1 year in pilot training, and then flying beyond that. The military is a great option. It's free flying. You're flying jets almost right away. You're going upside down and doing loop-to-loops and up there having a good time. Unfortunately, on the taxpayer's dollar, but it was a great career. On the other side, my daughter, she's now 19, but when she was very young, she used to go with me on several of my trips at United, and enjoyed the travel and so on and so forth. So one day I took her to the EAA Young Eagles breakfast. It's pancakes and airplane rides for teenagers, and she did that when she was like a junior in high school, and loved flying, manipulating the controls even more so than sitting in the back and sipping on an orange juice. And so she joined the Young Eagles. She joined as a young lady. She joined the 99s and worked with other women that have been in aviation for quite some time. She is now a student of professional flight at Auburn University. There's many universities and schools throughout the country that offer professional flight training when you come out of there, you come out with your degree. So starting in high school, start thinking about if you want to go on that track. There's Purdue, there's Emory-Riddle, there's University of North Dakota, Auburn University. Like I said, there's lots of opportunities there. And thanks to the GMAA, there's all sorts of scholarship opportunities as well, whether for the young ladies. I'm a big advocate of women in aviation and any of the STEAM sciences, technology, engineering, and math. It's a great career for any woman, for any person, but especially for the women. And so that's what I would encourage. That was my story of how I started, and
Thank you.
and how my daughter is now going through college and working on her degrees.
That's fantastic. Isaac, please.
Thank you. So I started my career. Oh, I'm sorry. Just going off here. Started my career high school ROTC, and was fortunate to get into the officers program within the Navy, and became an NFO, which was a Naval Flight Officer, on the E-2 Hawkeyes. Again, like I stated before, I had a passion for aviation growing up as a little boy. And I echo Milo on his comments. I try to surround myself with experienced people to try to get myself to the next level. So I did 6 years active in the military, Navy. And when I became reserve, I started with a company called Piedmont Aviation, which was an affiliate of Piedmont Airlines at the time. And over the years, we've switched tremendously from Piedmont Aviation to Piedmont Hawthorne Aviation. Then we went to Landmark Aviation, and now we're Signature Flight Support. So I started out as a supervisor coming out of the military, and worked my way up to airline manager. We had a lot of contracts with the airlines, TWA at the time, Transworld Express, and we did a lot of ground handling, interplane fueling, above wing, below wing, and I was a manager of that sector of the company at the time. And then I became general manager for the company, and transferred to different locations, and ended up here in Miami. So I've had a great career in general aviation as well as the airlines, and definitely fortunate to be where I am today as a director.
Fantastic. Damien, I think you had a little different trajectory coming from France, but a unique story as well.
Yeah, it's maybe not so different trajectory, but started, yes, on another part of the world. I wanted to be a pilot. It appears that I was graduated as an engineer, and I started working as an engineer, working on certification. And certification is always for aircraft, several aircraft manufacturers, and certification and design engineering are always connected to what we call airworthiness. But when it comes to airworthiness, at some point you will have to deal with clients or to deal with final users. That means from airworthiness, I have also switched to customer support, and then to sales, to marketing, to strategy, and to developing new businesses. That is to say, what I want to say is that being a specialist is a good thing always, but I think being able to deal with a wider scope of work is even better, specifically during the trying times we know currently. So I will encourage any students to broaden as much as they can their perspective. And for those who wants to be pilots, I can definitely get that. Even though you do not succeed in becoming pilots, always be sure that there is always solution to fly professionally or even privately, but you will always find, most of the time, you will always find a way to fly, and keep working not too far from planes. And there is plenty of different positions in aviation and in business aviation to fulfill this, I will say, this appetite for flying and for planes.
Awesome. Sean, same question, please.
I think, like everyone, it's a love of aviation started young. My dad was a airworthiness engineer, as a kid, went through his books, and I grew up As a matter of fact, when I started going to high school, I used to have to cross the airport, to cross the runway to get to school. So I absolutely fell in love with aviation. My favorite beach, where my ashes are going to be after, are right next to my favorite airport and my favorite beach in Castries, St. Lucia. Absolutely fell in love with aviation there. The best advice I think I could give is it really is in line with where what Damien said, right? It's you can have a goal, you can aim for it, and whilst it's wonderful that we can all meet our goals, sometimes situations happen in life that change, right? When I decided that I wanted to go fly, I already had a kid and a mortgage and a car payment. And I thought about the $20,000 that I was going to make for the next however many years after I was done spending $60,000 or whatever it was on flight training. So I followed my father's path and I went into maintenance. No regrets at all. As a matter of fact, I never even pursued a private license. I have no regrets. Enjoy it. It's just be flexible. If you can get where you're going and it can work for you financially, that's fine. But please don't break the bank trying to get there. If there are other options, you can get there. I have many friends who are also airline pilots today who went the maintenance route and whilst as maintainers went to flight school. So they were earning a living and they paid for their flight school with the living they were earning. They didn't go into major debt trying to get into flight school. That doesn't mean that you don't want to go to the colleges and stuff like that. I have 2 degrees from Embry-Riddle. So education is very important, but it's just be flexible, be prepared, look at the opportunities and look at the things that are presenting themselves to you. Don't be blind to those things because there are a lot of different opportunities to make a very good living in aviation.
Absolutely. And Fabio before mentioned one of my favorite sayings from Eddie Rickenbacker. Another one that I'm reminded of is that, 20 years, Mark Twain said that 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the things you did. So, I mean, now is the time. And Dawn, you have an amazing story. We got to learn about this story when you were awarded by our organization a few years ago, one of our top awards. And please share with our young audience.
Thank you. Yes, I was actually born and raised in Nigeria, West Africa. My parents were Protestant missionaries, both medical doctors, and they started a hospital in the bush, truly in the bush, 100 miles from the next nearest city. So the only way really that we had a connection to the outside world were when Cessna 185s, Cessna 180, Apache and Aztecs would come in, land on the grass strip beside the hospital and take us off to boarding school or bring in supplies. So it was really there where I got my passion right from grade 1, where they took us off to boarding school, away from your parents for 4 or 5 months, and then back home for a month or 2. And we built our own houses, dug our own wells, put in our diesel generators, and I always loved maintenance. Came back to, after 18 years living in Nigeria, came back to Toronto, went to Seneca College, a technical school there, where you actually graduate with 250 hours IFR commercial multi-engine and aircraft maintenance. Moved down to Florida because I'd come down here for spring break and saw more airplanes between Miami and West Palm than I saw pretty well in all of Canada. So I said, boy, for a guy that's passionate in aviation, this is the place to be. Got a contract job flying an Aztec back and forth to the islands, then saw the need for maintenance for this little charter outfit that I was flying a 402 for and an Aztec, and came to Sheltair years ago, 1979, and asked if they had a hangar available that I could rent in order to look after this charter company's airplane. And sure enough, they rented me a hangar here at Executive Airport. And that's where began Banyan, named Banyan after the trees around our village in Africa, and just slowly started to have teammates join our company. Now we have about 190 teammates here, full heavy maintenance we do, avionics installs, troubleshooting and so forth. We're the Honda Jet dealer for the Southeast, along with aircraft acquisitions and helping customers sell their airplanes. And then we've created a customer experience here with a Key West type terminal, a jet cafe on one side, and a Disney themed pilot shop on the other side. If I could really say something to the young people, it would be to truly be number one in business or in yourself, is that you have to surpass yourself, not the competition, and always look to continuously improve in your skills, in your questioning, in your asking yourself what your real passion is, and then pursuing it. And as you go for interviews, I would go to the interview having studied the company to which you're applying, and to go to that interview not with the thought, I wonder if they'll hire me, but is this really the company that I would like to work for? Truly, the business books are all giving you advice on objectives and goals, but they're never really explaining why. Why is this company in business? What are they doing? What problem are they really solving? How do they treat their customers? Are their customers really the most important aspect of their business? And if so, what do they do special for those customers? Because it's truly how you treat those customers that makes our paycheck.
Right. Great. And I would like to add with someone who's been an inspiration for me because I've known him for so long. I've watched with admiration his growth, his amazing ascent to a prominence. Glenn, so in past years, Fabio, give us a little flavor of what it's like to be in this business and some wisdom.
Oh no.
Fabio, mute first. Fabio, you have to unmute.
Yeah,
think
so
we're-
I apologize. What it takes to be in this business, again, you're your own challenge, and I'm pretty prejudiced when it comes to this because I really think people, if they're going to be in this business, they better know that they love it. I can't say that my path was that way. So to be fair, I thought I was going to make it in baseball. I didn't. My family were immigrants from South America, from very poor upbringing, and I guess that's that adversity that I needed. And took for granted in many ways, moving from Chicago to where I was born to Miami and then Marathon, and where a lot of this adversity, even though my dad had purchased a gas station without owning the real estate for $5,000 in Marathon, back when there was full serve and self-serve, and then they mandated the tanks to be put underground. And here I was thinking I was gonna go to junior college, and before I was thinking of going to junior college, I wasn't going anywhere. I needed to help the family to work at the convenience store that lost the convenience status of not having fuel. Little did I know there was an ad to fuel airplanes at Marathon Airport, which I thought, speaking about barriers of entry, I never thought that getting a job at the airport would be even possible. And when I did take that job, and while I was fueling, I really enjoyed the stories that I heard from the people that owned these single twins and jets. They were my Harvard degree, so to speak, because they all had they either were widget millionaires or billionaires. And I thought the more, the better my service, the more time I was able to get of them. And then when I thought I was wanting to be a pilot and learning how to fly it, I ran into Guillermo Lares, who I really credit a lot of this to. He is a humanitarian along with Jose Basulto, and founded Brothers to the Rescue, and say, hey, Fabio, do something with your flying, come with us on the missions. did not know that a year later during Hurricane Andrew, I would lose my job. And Guillermo Lares, from the same hurricane that took my job and being unemployed for 10 months, he would hire me to go work at Tamiami Airport for Joe Husta, who was selling airplanes at the time and who sold an airplane. And then we moved to Opalaca. I went to director of marketing. We went bankrupt, so I always kid around. I guess I did a bad job of marketing. And then I took a chance on 2 credit cards, not because I really felt I could be a great FBO with the team. I just wanted to keep my job at the airport. I wanted to keep fueling on the ramp. And I just took that chance, but I really credit Guillermo and my team for that. Now, in paving it forward, and this is why the passion has to really be there. And one of the things that we did when you put goals in front of you, we put a jet on the golf course in 2003 at the Ford Championship at Doral, and that's on YouTube. I didn't do that just to brag about that. I did that because to show my team, to pay homage to the Wright brothers, because it was aviation's 100th anniversary. And they all have goals. Anybody who works for the company that I have an association with or own have to write down their goals. And we go over those goals on an annual performance. And they're welcome to change it. And it's not to compliment me, it's to hold them accountable for what they want to achieve, which is why, you know, fortunate enough that I was blessed with the opportunity of meeting Barrington Irving and Shasta Weiss. You know, one was the youngest man to fly around the world in a single engine airplane, coming from a Jamaican family, immigrants, as well as myself, from a poor background, coming here in the US. And Barrington left a very prestigious high school reputation for being a great running back and walked away from Division I scholarships. Shasta Weiss basically was leaving pretty much an Afghan Soviet war to be one of the first Afghan women to be a certified pilot and to be one of the youngest women to do so at 30, you know. And these things I associated myself with for adversity and diversity. And, you know, we talked about earlier about what's the biggest challenge. I think not having enough diversity in our industry, and it's all pretty much taken for granted. And I think if it wasn't for Brothers to the Rescue and seeing these Cuban people basically say, hey, take my family, I'm putting my will in the hands of God, and telling your wife, hey, we're going to jump on this raft. How do you know we're going to make it? I don't. I'm just trusting the path that I'm going forward. So I can tell you, whatever adversity I went through is nothing compared to what I've seen with many of the stories that I've heard from Brothers to the Rescue, from Barrington and Shasta. So I would tell anybody who wants to get in this industry, if you want to really look at what adversity and success looks like, go follow Barrington, go follow Brothers to the Rescue, Guillermo, and Shasta Weiss. That's what I would say.
Fabio, that's a great way to end. And really, this being Black History Month, I'm reminded of the great Booker T. Washington, and you know, something that he has said that lingers with me for so many years. Success is to be measured not by so much by the position that one has achieved, but the obstacles which he overcame. And all of us overcame a lot of obstacles. It's nice to have success at the end, but guys, young guys and girls, more importantly, there's a lot of hard work and obstacles that we need to go through. So I want to thank the amazing panel that we had today. Another very, very good session that the GMAA has conducted. Stay tuned. Next month, we're going to have the MRO industry. In future months, we're going to have other panels that have to deal with training, education, of course, the ever popular executive ladies of aviation, which is tremendous. If you can, please use the donate button and donate to the GMAA, become members, become involved. We have a golf tournament coming in April, we hope, with social distancing adhered to. And with this, I want to, again, thank everybody on the panel, all the participants in the session, and enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Aviv.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.